Hey friends, Dore and Magnus here for Gamereactor. We are continuing our series on Hitman.
Yeah.
And we are up to chapter 3, Marrakesh.
Yeah. So I went to IO Interactive, their new offices, and talked a bit with Christian Elverdam, which is the studio creative director. And in this episode, we're talking about, as you said, Marrakesh, the third episode of the first season. I asked him a bit about what went into creating the massive amounts of NPC that is present in this level, and what thought that went into creating the political disorder between the two sort of factions that happens in the level. So stay tuned for that.
Well, I think we use the crowds once in a while to sort of create this. I think it's a very Hitman thing. This feeling of a very living universe, a very living space. And obviously in Paris we have a little bit with the fashion show crowd and the party and stuff like that. But for Marrakesh we wanted to create this confusion or overloading of the senses, basically saying that we've portrayed sort of a stylistic Paris and pleasant Italy. And now we wanted to try to showcase what it must feel like to be in a North African country just in the sort of the hours before a military coup is about to go down. So we felt that there were two things in that. One was to create a sort of this tightness of this feeling of shit is about to go down. I can't say that. Boop, it's about to go down. But you know, there's definitely a tension in Marrakesh. But on the other hand, we also wanted to go to North Africa without portraying it as a war-torn country necessarily. It feels civilian and lived in, and part of that was actually creating the markets and creating the crowd in the markets to make that both the chaos but also the life of the town without necessarily portraying it as a war zone. We also needed that chaos in Marrakesh because, again, we play a lot with contrast, and in Marrakesh you have the contrast. Obviously, the most clear one is between the crowds and the coolness and the stillness of the consulate, the Swedish consulate in the city, and that feel of going from noise and visual overload and then into sort of a calm, cool place was pretty important. And it's also something we use quite a bit to sort of underline some of the, sometimes it's, for instance, the mood of your target character. I think Klaus Sternberg, the banker in this case, is super arrogant and obviously sort of not really part of Marrakesh at all. He's isolated. So creating a habitat for him that feels proper arrogant, I mean, in a way having a sort of Scandinavian designed, air-conditioned, super minimalistic consulate in the middle of an old sort of town setting within the bustling markets and stuff like that feels on some level a little bit imperialistic in a modern way, and that sort of underlines nicely how we portray the banker in Marrakesh. So I think there are sort of many different elements that tie into the selection of the crowd. Why did we choose the Marrakesh setting as we did? We also typically, when we think about a Hitman level, we say there's an element of actual physical globetrotting, you know, traveling the world because it's interesting. But then we also spend some time thinking about what would be the event of the place. And we talked about it a little bit with Paris. There was the Spiring meeting. There's a fashion show going on. Events that you would actually like to see. It's like a little bit like voyeurism, being the fly on the wall. And in Marrakesh, it's this. It doesn't always need to be pleasant or exclusive. It's this feeling of what does it feel like? This military coup style that's happening under. Sort of just under the surface. And I don't think I would like to travel there myself, but it's still interesting to be a fly on the wall, infiltrating the small military base or the old abandoned school that we built. So we try to look for events or situations that you might find fascinating as a player. The icon is a pretty substantial reworking of Sapienza. It takes effort, obviously. Not as much as building the entire Italian town, but obviously coming up with the movie set, building all the props and building the level is the same, basically. It's more like we get a lot of area for free. We get a lot of other stuff from the vibe of the place. We change the tone, we change the time of day. But it was very integral to the way we envisioned season 1, and it's actually the system that actually allows us to do stuff like this, exchange geometry or level setups, also add elusive targets and make them disappear again, is a fundamental technological sort of undertaking that we had to do at the very sort of onset of the project to change our Glacier engine. So that you could actually, it's a little bit complex, but you have your level architecture, you have everything the level is built out of. We had to rebuild or re-architect the whole way we see levels, which is pretty fundamental. Yeah. But in the end, it allows us to add, for instance, an elusive target to the level or a movie set. And especially with some of these very live elements like the elusive target, you don't have to download gigabytes of data. Obviously, it's way more when it's in a time mission. But we felt if the world is supposed to feel living, then we cannot expect people to sort of download huge chunks every time we do something. Obviously, there are patches and stuff like that, as per normal. But I think we've had updates every week since we started launching the game.
Yeah, so that's it for Chapter 2. Stay tuned for 3, 4, 5, and 6 coming up in the future.